The music stopped, and so did Ellen. It was a Tuesday afternoon at the Ellen DeGeneres show studio in Burbank, California. The audience was buzzing with their usual pre-show energy, the cameras were positioned perfectly, and Ellen stood backstage in her signature lavender blazer and white Converse sneakers, reviewing her notes for the day's guests. She had no idea that in the next 20 minutes, she would witness something that would shatter every script, every plan, and remind her why she started doing this show in the first place. 3 weeks earlier, a handwritten letter had arrived at the Ellen Show production office. It was written on lined notebook paper, the kind you'd find in a child's backpack. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, like someone had taken their time to make sure every word was perfect. Dear Ellen, my name is Sofia Martinez. I'm writing to you about my daughter Mia. She's 8 years old, and she was born profoundly deaf. But Ellen, she can play the piano. Not because she can hear the music, but because she can feel it. She learned by placing her hands on the piano while I played, feeling the vibrations, memorizing the patterns. I'm not writing to ask for anything for myself. I just want Mia to know that her gift matters, that being different doesn't mean being less. You've always celebrated people who are different, and that's why I'm writing to you. Thank you for everything you do. Respectfully, Sofia Martinez. The production assistant who opened the letter had immediately taken it to the senior producer. By the end of that day, it was on Ellen's desk, and when Ellen read it, she didn't hesitate for even a second. Get them here, she said simply. Next available taping. Mia Martinez stood backstage at the Ellen DeGeneres show, holding her mother's hand so tightly that Sofia could feel her daughter's pulse through her small fingers. The 8-year-old girl wore a yellow dress that her grandmother had made specially for this day, and her dark hair was pulled back with a bright blue ribbon. But what made Mia different, what made her extraordinary, were the small hearing aids visible behind each ear. Devices that helped, but could never fully give her the world of sound that most people took for granted. Sofia knelt down to Mia's level and signed to her. Are you ready? Mia nodded, but her eyes were wide with nervousness. She had never been in front of this many people before. She had never been on television. She had only ever played piano in their small apartment, or sometimes at the community center when it was empty. What Mia didn't know, what Sofia hadn't told her, was the sacrifice that had made this moment possible. 6 months ago, Mia's hearing aids had broken. They were old, constantly malfunctioning, and Mia had been struggling in school, missing words, falling behind. The audiologist had recommended new, better devices, advanced technology that could change Mia's life. The cost, $6,000. Sofia worked 2 jobs. She was a housekeeper during the day and a waitress 3 nights a week. She saved every penny she could. But it wasn't enough. It would take years to save that kind of money. So Sofia had made a choice that no mother should ever have to make. She sold her own hearing aids. Sofia had been born with partial hearing loss. It had worsened over the years, and her hearing aids had been her connection to the world, to conversations, to her daughter's voice. But when faced with the choice between her own hearing and her daughter's future, there was no choice at all. She sold her devices, added her savings, and bought Mia the best hearing aids available. Mia never knew. Sofia had gotten very good at reading lips, at nodding at the right times, at hiding the fact that she now lived in a world of muffled, distant sounds. Ellen walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. She waved to the audience, did her opening dance, cracked a few jokes. Everything was going according to plan. All right, Ellen said, settling into her rhythm. So we have a very special guest today. She's 8 years old, her name is Mia, and she's going to play piano for us. The audience applauded warmly. But here's the thing, Ellen continued, and her voice shifted slightly. The comedy dropped away, replaced by something more genuine. Mia is deaf. She was born profoundly deaf, and yet She taught herself to play piano by feeling the vibrations of the keys. The audience's applause intensified, but it was different now. This wasn't polite game show applause. This was the sound of people recognizing something remarkable. Please welcome Mia Martinez and her mother, Sofia. The performance. Mia walked onto the stage holding her mother's hand. The bright lights were overwhelming, the audience massive and intimidating. But then she saw it. In the center of the stage sat a beautiful grand piano, black and glossy under the studio lights. Ellen knelt down to Mia's level, just as she always did with young guests. She spoke clearly, knowing Mia could read lips and that her hearing aids would help. "Hi, Mia. Thank you for being here." Mia smiled shyly. "Thank you for having me, Miss Ellen. I hear you're going to play something for us today." Mia nodded. "Can you tell everyone how you learned to play piano when you can't hear the music?" Mia thought for a moment, then answered in the clear, slightly careful way of someone who has worked hard to form each word correctly. "I put my hands on the piano when my mom plays. I feel the music. It's like the piano is talking to me, but not with words, with feelings." Ellen felt her throat tighten. This 8-year-old girl had just described music more beautifully than most people ever could. "That's beautiful, Mia. Would you play something for us?" Mia nodded and walked to the piano. Sofia stayed near the edge of the stage, her hands clasped in front of her, watching her daughter with fierce pride and overwhelming love. Mia sat at the piano bench. She placed her small hands on the keys, and then, without any sheet music, without any hesitation, she began to play. The piece was Beethoven's Für Elise, simple but played with an emotional depth that seemed impossible for such young hands. Mia's eyes were closed. Her head swayed slightly with the rhythm she felt but couldn't fully hear. The audience was completely silent. Even the camera operators forgot to adjust their angles, transfixed by what they were witnessing. Ellen stood off to the side, watching. She had seen thousands of performances over the years, but this was different. This was a child who had to work 10 times harder for something that came easily to others, and she had done it with grace and determination. But then, something unexpected happened. The moment everything changed. Mia stopped playing, not because she had finished, not because she had made a mistake. She stopped in the middle of the piece, her hands frozen above the keys. Ellen's instinct immediately kicked in. She walked toward the piano, concerned. "Mia, sweetheart, are you okay?" Mia turned to look at her mother. Tears were streaming down the 8-year-old's face. She lifted her hands and signed something to Sofia. Sofia's face went pale. Her hand flew to her mouth. Ellen looked between them, confused and worried. "What's wrong? What did she say?" Sofia was crying now too. She shook her head, unable to speak. Mia turned to Ellen, and in her clear, careful voice, said something that would stop not just the show, but everyone watching. "I want to play for my mom. She gave up her hearing aids so I could have mine." The studio fell completely silent. Ellen's mouth opened slightly. "What?" Mia continued, her young voice cracking with emotion. "I heard her talking to the doctor. I wasn't supposed to hear, but I did. She sold her hearing aids to buy mine. Now she can't hear me very good anymore." Ellen turned slowly to look at Sofia, who was now openly sobbing, her secret exposed in front of millions. "Is that true?" Ellen asked, though she already knew the answer. Sofia nodded, tears streaming down her face. "She needed them more than I did." The audience gasped. Several people brought their hands to their faces. Even the producers in the control booth were wiping their eyes. Ellen stood frozen for a moment. And then, without consulting anyone, without following any script or protocol, she walked away from Mia, away from the piano, straight to Sofia. Behind the scenes decision. In the control room, the director was frantically trying to figure out what was happening. This wasn't planned. This wasn't in any notes. but something told him to keep the cameras rolling. Ellen reached Sofia and pulled her into a hug. Not a quick, camera-friendly embrace, but a real hug. The kind that says, "I see you. I understand. You're not alone." "How long?" Ellen asked softly, her voice picked up by her microphone. 6 months, Sofia whispered. Ellen pulled back, holding Sofia's shoulders, looking directly into her eyes. "You gave up your hearing for your daughter." "She's my everything," Sofia said simply. "She deserves every chance." Ellen wiped her own eyes. Then she turned to address the audience. But she was no longer in host mode. This was Ellen, the person speaking from her heart. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've been doing this show for years. I've met incredible people, heard amazing stories. But this," she gestured to Sofia and Mia, "this is what love looks like. This is a mother who gave up her connection to the world so her daughter could have a better one." The audience erupted in applause, but Ellen raised her hand. "I'm not finished." She walked back to center stage, positioning herself between Mia at the piano and Sofia standing at the edge. "Sofia, I want you to come here, please." Sofia walked hesitantly to where Ellen stood. Ellen took both of Sofia's hands. "You sacrificed your hearing for your daughter. But here's what's going to happen now. You're not going to have to choose anymore." She pulled an envelope from her blazer pocket. "Sofia, in this envelope is a check for $50,000. Sofia's knees buckled. Ellen caught her arm. "But that's not all. I've been on the phone for the last 5 minutes with Phonak, one of the leading hearing aid companies. They're donating top-of-the-line hearing aids for both you and Mia. Not just one pair. Backup pairs. Batteries for life. Everything you need." Sofia was shaking, crying so hard she could barely stand. Mia had run from the piano and was now hugging her mother's waist, both of them crying. But Ellen still wasn't finished. "And Mia, I've also been talking to the Colburn School of Music here in Los Angeles. They want to offer you a full scholarship. Piano lessons, music theory, everything. They said, and I quote, 'A gift like yours needs to be nurtured.'" The audience was on their feet now, applauding, crying, cheering. But in the middle of all that noise, Ellen did something that would become the image everyone remembered. She knelt down to Mia's level and spoke directly to her. "Mia, I want you to finish your song now, but this time, I want you to play it for your mom, and I want her to hear every single note." Ellen stood and gestured to someone off stage. A man walked out carrying a small case. He opened it to reveal a pair of advanced hearing aids. Right there, on stage, in front of millions, the audiologist fitted Sofia with her new hearing aids. The moment they were activated, Sofia's hand flew to her ears. Her eyes went wide. She could hear the audience applauding. She could hear Ellen speaking. She could hear everything. "Can you hear me?" Ellen asked. Sofia nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes. Yes, I can hear you." "Good. Because your daughter has something to play for you." Mia walked back to the piano. She sat down, placed her hands on the keys, and looked at her mother. Sofia stood in the center of the stage, her new hearing aids allowing her to experience something she hadn't experienced in 6 months. Complete, clear sound. Mia began to play Für Elise from the beginning. And this time, Sofia could hear every single note. She could hear the way Mia's small fingers brought forth melody from the keys. She could hear the emotion in every phrase. She could hear the gift that she had sacrificed everything to protect. Halfway through the piece, Mia looked up at her mother and smiled. Sofia smiled back, and in that moment, everyone in the studio understood what they were witnessing. This wasn't just a performance. This was a conversation between a mother and daughter, spoken in the only language that mattered: love. When Mia finished, the audience exploded in applause, but Mia didn't acknowledge them. She ran straight to her mother. Sofia dropped to her knees and pulled her daughter into her arms. "I heard it," Sofia said, her voice breaking. I heard every note, mi amor. You're perfect. You're so perfect. I love you, Mama, Mia said. And for the first time in 6 months, Sofia heard those words clearly. The aftermath. Ellen let them have their moment. She stood off to the side, tears streaming down her own face, making no effort to hide her emotion. Finally, she walked over and placed her hands on both their shoulders. Sofia, Mia, I want you to know something. What you've shown us today isn't just about hearing aids or piano lessons or money. You've shown us what it means to put someone else's life ahead of your own. You've shown us what real love looks like. She addressed the camera directly.